You have probably heard something like this, especially in the last few years, and it's even more recent because it's right in the forefront of politics. Hybrid kills productivity. Hybrid working kills culture. People are just at home in their PJs, in their socks, slacking off, doing no work whatsoever. The claims around hybrid work are incredibly loud, but they are not backed by the best data and the research that we now have available in our fingertips. Hybrid work, when it's done really, really well, is one of the biggest performance upgrades of the last decade for companies and for humans. And what I'm going to do today in this video is I'm going to show you the science, the data, the research that proves it, and how you can actually nail hybrid working. What are we waiting for? Let's go.
Okay, let's go.
Right, I want to start with a big experiment that was done in the not too distant past. Before I get into that, if you're new here, hi, I'm Nick. I'm the culture doctor, and every single week I share research, advice, and stories on how to make work way more remarkable than it currently is today. For so many, work is not working, and I want to change that. So if you like what you hear, why don't you just, hit subscribe, hit like, share it with your friends, your family, and your colleagues. That'd be great. Anyway, back to this hybrid working thing. So let's start with the strongest evidence, the best experiment that we've got. And it comes from Stanford economist Nicholas Bloom. He ran a large randomized trial with about 1,600 employees at the very, very famous travel company Trip.com. Trip are one of the world's biggest travel companies. And like with all of the research, I will post all of this in the comments section. So here's the experiment. Half the people at Trip worked hybrid, and that was 3 days a week in the office, 2 days a week at home. The other half stayed full-time in the office, right? Managers at Trip were completely convinced that hybrid would completely kill their performance. Employees, they freaked out. They were like, if we work from home, even just these few days a week, we're going to be penalized, miss out on things like promotions, informal chats and conversations. So-and-so is going to get that job, that project. But did any of that actually take place? Let's see, right? So what happened was, over the next couple of years, the hybrid group was just as productive as the office-only group, and just as likely to be promoted. And that is the kicker. It didn't interfere in their career prospects. But the thing is, hybrid employees, beyond that, they were more satisfied. They quit at a much lower rate. It cut attrition by about 1/3 across the entire organization. That one simple experiment alone saved Trip millions in turnover costs, and it did nothing to affect poor performance in a negative way. If anything, things improved because the sentiment, attachment, engagement to the organization also improved. Hybrid did not break the business. It made it ever so quietly, ever so succinctly stronger. I also want to take some time to debunk some of the myths and some of the misconceptions around hybrid working. So I'm going to start with the first one, which links beautifully and correlates well with that Trip experiment. The first one is hybrid work kills productivity, right? You can air quote on this. People are less productive at home. Hybrid just kills output because you're just distracted by like the fridge or your kids or that thing you wanted to do. But in the Trip.com trial and all the follow-up analysis that took place around that, hybrid workers' performance reviews, their promotion rates, they were statistically the exact same as their in-office 5 days a week counterparts. There was no drop-off in productivity, no drop-off in escalation and rates to promotions and progression. And even in some wider surveys, there's things that over 90% of people say that they're as productive from their in their hybrid environment than fully remote or fully in the office, right? So this stuff, hybrid working, giving people that flexibility, it works. Right here in the UK, there was a massive survey done. It found that hybrid workers were reporting higher job satisfaction, no loss in measured productivity, and a 33% reduction in turnover with full-time and compared with full-time office workers and when you're in the office full-time, right? So the question really is not, does hybrid genuinely destroy productivity. The real question that we should be asking is, why are we still forcing people into full-time 5-day-a-week commutes when they don't need to? When the numbers say we don't actually have to. And we want to live in a world and a society where we're driven by research and science and data to prove the things that we're trying to change, right? It's important. Right. But number two is this big one, right? Hybrid work destroys culture and negatively impacts people's well-being. I hear this all the time. If I want to bring culture, I need people in all the time. But when you look at people who actually do hybrid and work in a hybrid way, the story and the narrative is completely 180. There was a UK study that found 3/4 of hybrid workers reported less burnout when they were in the office for 5 days a week. Yeah, 79% said they felt less drained, and well over 2/3 reported better overall health. And this is really important. We're talking about overall health. That's things like better sleep, better eating habits, less stress, the buildup of cortisol, less burnout. All of those things, they're going to impact your longevity. Improved with hybrid work. And why is that? Because hybrid gives us and gives people flexibility. And most importantly, it gives you control of your life. Two of the biggest levers for reducing stress and burnout. And I talk about that in a previous video, which I'll post a link to. Control, autonomy, flexibility. So, culture piece. Hybrid doesn't automatically destroy culture. And I should know. I've spent pretty much my entire life figuring out what this thing about culture is all about. Hybrid exposes whether or not you have a culture beyond just free lunch and coffee and sitting in the same space. It gives people flexibility, that autonomy. It's not about where or how the work gets done. It's about how you feel about the work. I go back to this UK research. It showed that hybrid is now one of the most sought after benefits for job applicants, especially in Gen Z and up and coming talent. The flexibility, the autonomy to live life and work as one is really dependent on where you do your work. So if you're banning hybrid, you aren't raising your bar. If you want everyone back into the office full time, you're just shrinking your talent pool. So I promised at the start of this video that I would talk about how you can really sort of nail hybrid. A lot of it for me just stems in the idea of purpose. If hybrid can work, and clearly it does work based on the research and the data, how do we make sure it does and it's sticky and it's clear? Well, beyond purpose, very clearly defining why, the research points to a few pretty simple, pretty straightforward design rules. I'm going to share those with you right now. So rule one, be deliberate about why you come in. I speak to purpose. Like, use office days for work that genuinely benefits in-person connection, creative thinking, getting through tough conversations, deep collaboration, complex problem solving, building trust, building mentoring relationships. There's no point coming in just to sit on emails or just bore yourself into a team cesspit of nothingness 24/7. It's pointless. You can do that anywhere, cafe or at home, right? Rule number two, make the pattern quite predictable. What was really important is the trip.com experiment. It used very clear set days in and then just built work around those set days, which is important. So mentoring, coordination, cultural moments were done on specific moments together. So you still have the flexibility of your life, but there are a very clear purpose and people have the routine. Rule three, it's really important to protect boundaries because there is data that shows that hybrid workers often work a lot more hours, not less. Over 80% of remote employees in one survey reported working beyond normal hours, which is the case. It infuriates me when people say, oh, you're not productive at home. People are working more at home than they ever did in the office. It's crazy. So leaders, you've got to be really clear on this. You've got to model shutdown times. You've got to be really clear on boundaries. Make sure the meeting hours are sane. Allow people to have some camera off focus time when it's not needed. And just do blocks in people's diaries so you're not always going back to back. Final rule here to nail it is measure the outcomes, not the optics, right? All the experiments, all the data points I cited, performance was tracked via an output and reviews, not just a clock in, clock out, and time physically spent at a desk, right? If you're judging commitment by who's closest to you where you sit in an office, you're always going to be biased against your best hybrid performers because you're just focus on the person that's closest to you, the person you chat about the weekend with whilst having a coffee. Here's the bottom line of all of this. Hybrid work is not the enemy of performance or culture. Quite the opposite. poorly designed, fear-based hybrid is. And the best evidence that we have, the best data we can get our fingers on, says that hybrid, when it's done right, keeps performance, boosts it in some instances, drives retention, and genuinely makes people's lives measurably better. It makes it more remarkable when we have more flexibility, autonomy, and choice. So if you're a leader, your job isn't to drag people back into 2019, it's to design a hybrid model where time in the office is worth people's time in the office. It's worth the commute, the money, the cash, and the energy to get there. And if you're in a company still clinging on to the myth or holding on to what could be, or focusing on things like lack of productivity and the culture, share this, please, with the person who keeps saying we just need everyone back in and it will fix all of our problems of growth. Because I'm telling you, it ain't gonna. Because at this point, it's not hybrid that's unproven. It's the draconian, we must be physically present 5 days in an office that is. Hybrid work in a few minutes. Take it, share it with someone who cares and who might care if you just give them this little bit of nugget of advice. Thank you. I'll see you next time. Go.